folks. As some of you may have remembered, student loan debt repayments are starting up, but not for 40% of those who owe money back. So here is Politico. 40% of student loan borrowers missed payments in October. I love this story because they are going to have a hell of a time getting this money back from the students. About 40% of federal student loan borrowers missed their first monthly payment this fall as the unprecedented pandemic-era freeze on student debt expired, the Biden administration announced on Friday. The new data suggests that borrowers are experiencing a significantly higher level of delinquency and distress than they did before the pandemic, and the data confirms that millions of Americans are relying on a temporary safety net program that the Biden administration created to help borrowers who struggle to make payments. Some 22 million borrowers had a payment due at some point in October, but roughly 8.8 million of them, 40%, had failed to make their payment by the middle of November, according to the Education Department. That's a much higher rate of missing payments than the same stretch of time in the months leading up to the pandemic. About 26% of borrowers who owed a payment in October 2019 had failed to make their payment by middle of the following month, a senior department told Politico. Wow, that's a great number, too. That really says something, right? The only 1 in 4 were missing payments prior to the pandemic, and now almost half. The Education Department emphasized on Friday that a majority of borrowers successfully paid their first monthly payment. About 60% of borrowers, some 13.2 million people who owed a payment in October, made the payment by the middle of last month, said the department. While most borrowers have already made their first payment, others will need more time, James Caval, the Undersecretary of Education, said in a blog post explaining the new data on Friday. Some are confused or overwhelmed about their options. We want to make sure borrowers know that our top priority is to support student loan borrowers as they return to repayment. The new data shows for the first time that millions of borrowers are availing themselves of the flexibility that the Biden administration has offered borrowers, which officials have dubbed the on-ramp to repayment. This is the last thing I'll read here. As part of that policy, the Education Department will not report borrowers as delinquent to credit bureaus through the end of next September, though interest will continue to accrue on their debt. So you talk about a lesser evil argument for Democrats. We will jack up your interest but not report you to the crediting agencies, whereas the Republicans will jack up your interest and report you to the crediting agencies. Vote for us. Lesser evilism, baby. Incremental change. Way to go. I just love how that's the sort of perk that they're offering. Well, yeah, we're going to keep fucking you. Even if we forgive your repayments for the year, your interest is going to keep growing, but we won't report you. And as I said earlier, they're going to have a hell of a time getting this money back. You know, once you stop payments on a loan, it's very hard to restart them, especially since now, as we just mentioned in our last show, homelessness has peaked. Credit card debt has peaked. People don't have an extra $500, $600, $700 a month to give back to the predatory scumbags who sold them a bullshit loan 20 years ago. Like, they don't have it. They're not going to get this money back. Look at where we are in terms of inflation. Look at where we are in terms of housing costs. The median rent in this country is now over $2,000. The median, not the median.
I know. I can't
the median. All right. So where are people going to come up with this money? Answer, they're not. They're not. Like, they're just going to have a very difficult time getting this money back, which I think is really funny and great.
Yeah, and I was also looking at an article the other day. The gains that people made during the pandemic are gone.
They're gone.
The savings, the debt they paid down, they ran it back up. They're right back where they were, only with a post-inflation price hike.
Right, they put it all back into the eggs
they need
and
to
milk.
live. They put it all back into eggs, milk, rent. Yeah, no, that's amazing to me, because when you're talking about a median rent of $2,000, like you're starting to get into like shitty neighborhood New York rent. And I've been around the country enough to know how much money that is most places. How do people pay that? How are they going to pay that in most parts of the country? Most parts of the country, it just don't make enough. Like you're going back to the Okies working for the company store. You know, they're turning everybody into that. It's a slow degradation of people's expectations And that's what a lot of people are starting to say. A lot of people are saying this is a prolonged war against the majority of the population to get them to accept the idea that they should live with less. And a lot of people are saying, and it's something I'm going to dig into a little bit more. I'd like to interview Michael Schellenberger. He has some skepticism around a lot of the policies regarding climate change. A lot of people say they're deploying that to get people to accept less, right? To make it virtuous to consume less, with the ultimate aim being so that the people at the top can consume more. And if that's not the case, why the fuck they take private jets to go talk about the climate at Davos?
Of course.
Why are these people still consuming like that?
Please clap.